This is the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey, and looking at some replacement options because you have lost two players, at least for a few weeks, to injury. Micah Parsons has a high ankle sprain. He's going to miss some time. Maybe he's back after the bye week. DeMarcus Lawrence, meanwhile, is going to miss, quote-unquote, multiple weeks with a mid-foot sprain. He's going to go see a specialist. I don't like ever seeing that word when it comes to injuries. TBD on when he's back. I'd probably say after the bye as well. So with that in mind, knowing you've already lost Sam Williams for the entire season, do the Cowboys need another pass rusher? 1 for yes, 0 for no. I had argued it might be 1 even before the injuries. He had a great game against the Browns. 6 sacks, a stupid amount of pressures because they got backup tackles. Deshaun Watson does not feel pressure very well either. Since then, 1 sack, 6 pressures, 0 sacks, 5 pressures, 1 sack, 12 pressures. That's all you've done. You got most of your pressures late in that game, or the Giants were throwing it a bit more frequently, but they weren't necessarily high quality pressures either that were forcing all kinds of disasters. Now they forced some missed chances that DJ had to roll right because he does not ever roll left for whatever reason. But your pass rushing group was kind of a disappointment for me in that game, given your success previously. Now you're down Micah Parsons. Now you're down Tank Lawrence. Your internal options right now are Marshawn Kneeland, second-round pick, who we'll talk about here in a second. Chauncey Golston, who I think is a better run setter than he is a pass rusher. Tyrus Wheat, who was a scratch. And also practice squatter Carl Lawson with no other option at defensive end, really, on your practice squad. Now, Kneeland has been kind of a weird player. He was awesome against the Browns. He had 6 pressures in that game. He's had 1 pressure since. Now, I thought he played pretty well against the Giants, had the tackle for loss in that game, a great special teams play, but he's got a 9% pressure rate. He was always a developmental pass rushing option, decent run stopper. Now, I don't know where you're going to get that from. He's going to start. I would have decent chance you get Chauncey Golston out there as a run stopper. I think he's a better edge setter at defensive end than he is at defensive tackle. 8 tackles, sack, 1 TFL. Of note, by the way, on the Kneeland, it was a TFL, not a sack of Daniel Jones. It was a read option play. So that was a tackle for loss of Jones, not a sack. Golston had a sack earlier this year. Carl Lawson's had a couple pressures. He and Chauncey Golston both at 13.6 rounding upward %. So he's had some pressures. Took Dante Fowler, rolled too literally, and jumped off sides on a play. I thought he was better last week than he was previously. He's got 1 more free practice squad call-up left. Then you got to make a decision on him on the active roster. So you might have to put someone on IR, make a spot, or cut somebody. That's not a great group. And Tyrus Wheat is a special teamer, basically, who has not done much of anything as a pass rusher. It's not a great spot to be. So predictions. We asked you should. Now we're going to ask you will. Will the Cowboys add another pass rusher? I've got some ideas, free agency, trades, cut or practice squad, etc. Will they add one? Y for yes, N for no at the pin comment of today's video, especially if the ad comes on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. We'll go quick on some of the free agent options because they fall into very similar buckets. Rasheem Green probably fits more of like the Golston mold where he can like do some run stopping stuff for you, but isn't an elite pass rusher. But he is one of the better names out there. Frank Clark joins the next 4 names on this list. He is an older pass rusher who was once good and maybe doesn't have the juice left anymore. Shaq Lawson hasn't really done much of anything the past couple years. He might be closer to retirement than anything else. Justin Houston, and we'll also merge him with Melvin Ingram here as part of the same conversation because they both signed with the Dolphins late last season. Didn't really do all that much. All these guys are old. This is what happens when you're in late September free agency. It's not a good group. Myjai Sanders already got cut by Houston. He just might be cooked as an NFL player, but he's kind of a skinnier pass rusher that maybe you could have some success with. If you were to sign any of these guys, by the way, you would almost assuredly put them on the practice squad before anything else. But it's just not a good free agency crop. Now, we're going to have to really speak some good stuff into existence for this Cowboys defense. It worked last week. I said we'll do, or I guess this past week, we'll do the turnover chain. Maybe you get a turnover. You got one. You can get yours as well. Chatsports.com/Cowboys chain. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/Cowboys chain. A clickable link, by the way, in that far corner opposite me as well. Got to have this name on here, don't we? Randy Gregory, who you know very well. He was a longtime part of your organization. He signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in free agency after playing for Denver and San Francisco last season, and then never showed up. Just never got there. The Bucs seemingly never really figured out what was going on. I don't know if he was struggling with stuff. That makes me worried given his past history. I am of this mindset. I don't know if either side wants to have this happen. Randy took shots at the Cowboys ownership and fans. Ownership took shots at Randy Gregory. I think that to an extent, and maybe this is too mean, but this is getting back together with your ex-girlfriend. And you are not in a position where you should be going back to the crazy ex. That's kind of mean, but I do think that's kind of where you're at. I would pass on the Randy Gregory reunion. But this is America's team, and I believe in democracy. So would you give Randy Gregory another chance? S for sign, P for pass. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Some practice squad options. Now, you can sign these guys off a practice squad. They have to stay on your roster for several weeks, though, before you could potentially move on. Yannick Ngakoue is first up on here since he recently signed with the Ravens practice squad. I am curious how much he has left in the tank. You've seen the decline the last couple of years. The sacks per game have dipped a little bit. The sacks have dipped. The TFLs have gone down. I don't think he's much of a run stopper. As a situational pass rusher, I think that could certainly be some interest. Although he did just sign with Baltimore, and as a reminder, you have to convince these guys to sign with you. They can say no. KJ Henry, he's bounced around the league, was in Washington, got claimed by the Bengals. Bengals cut him, put him on the practice squad. It's a draft pick out of Clemson. It's a notable name. Not many great options. Your almost Cowboys legend, Kayvon Chasen, who has just never materialized to what he was supposed to be in Jacksonville. I think he went to a bad spot that didn't develop him properly. The Cowboys regime was high on him coming out of LSU. Thank God CeeDee Lamb fell to you, or else you'd never be able to take another LSU edge in your entire life, or any LSU defender you wouldn't be able to take. 2 Vikings players on their practice squad, Bo Richter and Andre Carter. That's Air Force product and Army product, right? Yeah, Army for the Vikings. Weird size guys to an extent, but they've had NFL chances to an extent. Then there's Tyus Bowser, who you brought in for a workout. Seattle ended up signing him, but their pass rush has done pretty well. So maybe he would take a chance to get more playing time somewhere else. Now, I want you guys to name a defensive end you want to add. The trade options, who I suspect will be more intriguing to you guys. That's coming up next here. So let me know a defensive end who you want to add. I fully expect to see a lot of Hassan Reddick answers on here. And I don't disagree. In terms of the potentially realistic available names, this one stands out to me. There's 2 big issues here. Reddick has raised a stink about not getting paid. And if he's sticking on that, Dallas ain't going to pay him. Doesn't make sense. They also maybe don't want to pay his current base salary. He's still owed a pretty decent amount of money this year, although he's missing out on nearly $1 million in game checks along the way. If he is willing, and I have questions if he is willing, but if he is willing just to take his, I'll do $1 million rest of the way per game is basically what he's owed. It's a little bit less than that. He requested a trade. Does he want to get paid? Or does he just want out of New York? And are the Jets going to admit that they screwed? Because they would be giving up a 3rd-round pick in the future and getting, a 5th-round pick back? If I could get him, I am all for it. I think those are two massive question marks. Would he play without an extension? And would the Jets actually trade him, given the fact that your front office and the Jets have had some issues previously? A cheaper option, but one that is a Cowboys legend, is Isaiah Land. Land has not played very much this year for Indy. They've invested in other pieces there. Got a tackle for loss in just 14 snaps for Indy this year. That was one that a lot of Cowboys fans didn't want to let him leave, and they cut him, and he got claimed by Indianapolis. But Land stands out as a potential cheap option if you could get him from Indy. Some more veteran pieces. I'm focusing more on the pass rush side here early. That's Josh Uche. He is not a run stopper. Don't put him out there to set your edge. It's not going to go well. But he can do some linebacker stuff for you, too, in the same way that Micah kind of was moonlighting a little bit there. Has battled injuries a little bit over the course of his career, was awesome in 2022, limited in 2023, went back to New England. Keon White has emerged for them as their number one pass rusher. Patriots are not a good football team. Buying Uche could be a seller. Could be from a seller could be a decent buying move that hopefully won't cost you all that much. A disappointment option in New Orleans, Isaiah Foskey, the Notre Dame pass rusher. He just hasn't done much. He's been a bust, more or less, as a day 2 pick. He's stuck behind other pieces. If the Saints are open to moving on from a backup edge, they may or may not be. Foskey could be a decent name. Now, when the Cowboys make a move, we will have you covered with a video. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button. YouTube.com/CowboysTV. That's at YouTube.com/CowboysTV. I don't know if Denver would do it because it'd be a rental and he's probably going to leave in free agency. Jonathan Cooper has been a nice player for the Broncos. He's not as good as Hassan Reddick, make no mistake about it. But I think that is a under-the-radar name who could help you out. You could go call the Panthers about Jadeveon Clowney if you wanted to. Now, Clowney's got some attitude stuff that has caused issues with me in the past, but he can do run stopping. He's actually maybe even a better run stopper than he's passer sometimes. He was great last year for Baltimore. Is he on his every other year I'm good stint? I don't know. He went back home to Carolina, but Carolina's kind of bad. Not that expensive. With what you need right now, I think Clowney is actually a decent fit if you trust the person, because he burnt a bridge on his way out of Cleveland that a lot of the NFL did not like. Another sub-package option, D'Angelo Malone of the Falcons. He's not playing really at all after being a third-round pick. If you just want someone with some juice for DPR situations on third and longs, Malone stands out. Dominique Robinson has not developed the way I hoped he was going to out of Miami of Ohio for the Chicago Bears. He's buried on that depth chart right now. But again, it is September. You're now down your top 3 edges for Williams for the year, Micah Parsons for a few weeks. Tank Lawrence is, I would bet he ends up going on IR. That would not be a surprise. But the Cowboys did not get good injury news, and now they're kind of scrambling to figure stuff out.